Welcome to another episode of Breaking the Glass Ceiling. This is your host, Kofi Thompson here, and I am super excited to introduce my guest today, Erin Bradley. So, if you guys don't know Erin, she is a dynamic speaker, seasoned trainer, and best-selling author and host of the acclaimed real estate podcast, Pursuing Freedom. With extensive experience in the real estate industry, Erin has faced ups and downs of entrepreneurship, riding the roller coaster of broke to burnout and everything in between. So I'm super excited to have you on the show today, Erin. And I'd first love to just like start off with you just sharing your story from, getting into the mortgage industry initially and kind of where you got to where you are today. Because when we were talking, last week, I was just so inspired by like all the things that you had to face, early on, and then the resilience you showed in getting to where you are today. So I'd love for you to just start there.
Well, yeah, it wasn't pretty, Kofi. Let's be honest about that. So I would consider myself a free spirit, and I went to college, got a business
Mhm.
degree, but I decided to postpone what some would refer to as the real world for a few years. And I traveled, kayaked the coast of Mexico for a month, moved to Barcelona for 2 years, went on safari in Africa, all kinds of things. And in this time, I wasn't making a lot of money. I was earning very, very little and just
Mhm.
scraping by. And it was a great adventure. And so I had this limiting belief around what was even possible for me as a teacher. I was teaching English overseas and then teaching Spanish in Philadelphia, and found my way to Colorado in 2005. And I fell into the mortgage business in 2006. And at the time, I remember thinking all of my older siblings, I'm the youngest of five, had all gone to college, got good business degrees, went into corporate America. And I was trying to avoid that path for some reason. I had some aversion to corporate America. So I was like, okay, this mortgage business, this looks like it's for me, because these guys are coming into the office in jeans and a t-shirt, and then they're going to yoga in the middle of the day, and then they put on their suit and go to closing. And I'm thinking, footloose and fancy free, this is the life for me. I need to be one of these 100% commission salespeople, because I don't want anybody bossing me around. I want to be able to
Mhm.
travel and adventure, and this is the path, right? So
Yeah.
I took the leap, went 100% commission with no safety net financially, no game plan, no systems, and promptly fell flat on my face. And
Mm.
within a year, I'm $35,000 in credit card debt. I'm maxed out on all my credit cards. I get a referral for a new client, and I have to ride my bike 5 miles across town in the heat of summer because I didn't have enough money for gas. And I remember thinking to myself, what should I wear that I can look professional and ride a bike? And I got there early so I could let the sweat dry off before the client got there. I didn't want him to know that, I had to come on a bicycle. And unfortunately, the client got there early as well. And he introduced himself to me at the counter as my credit card was being declined for a $2 cup of coffee. And the worst part is that I actually thought that card was the only one that might cover the cup of coffee. When I say maxed, I mean maxed. So I didn't know what to do, because I'm like, if I try another card and it gets declined, this guy is going to know, the gig is up. So I just lied. I was like, oh, that's so weird. I'm going to have to call this my debit card. I'm going to have to call the bank. That's so weird. And anyway, he bought my coffee and I was mortified. And I remember calling my dad for advice afterwards. And he had gone 100% commission in his 20s. And I said to him, how the heck did you do this? This is so much harder than I expected. And he's like, listen, do you think you're going to be good at this someday? And I was like, I do. I think I could be. And he's like, well, you have to do whatever it takes then. And so I opened another credit card. I actually hired my first coach, believe it or not. I think a lot of people, myself included, would not think that we can afford to get a coach. And I've learned in hindsight that you can't afford not to, because by getting a coach, I was able to not only see what was possible in others by, borrowing the belief I see in them about what's possible, but also, borrowing the belief they see in me that I can't see in myself. And so it helped me to start to adapt better habits, better processes. And I was desperate. I told him, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I just wanted to get good grades with my coach. So I just did everything they told me to do, and it worked. I got traction and I started closing some deals and making enough money to pay my bills. But if I'm honest, Kofi, it was a few years before I found myself in this business, in the mortgage business, because I still felt like an imposter. I don't know why. It was like, you just have to fit the mold, right?
Hmm.
Here's the mold, fit the mold, get deals, make money, pay your bills, be okay. And while the money was okay, I wasn't necessarily. And so I ended up in 2011 reading a book called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann. It's a life changer for me. And it really hit me because I felt like for years I had been this go-getter. And once I understood that the goal in my day is to be of value above and beyond what I get paid to do, instead of focusing on what I need, can I come from a place of curiosity to see what you might need, which might not have anything to do with what I do for a living, frankly. And when I came from that place of curiosity and I developed a strategy that helped me to consistently build my business by referral without feeling salesy, I realized that curiosity will squash insecurity all day long, and love will squash fear. Like, you cannot feel love and fear in the same moment, in the same breath. And if you're feeling insecure, it's because you're thinking about you, right? You're thinking about your needs, your problem that you need to solve, your void that you need to fill. But if you're just curious about how to be of value to somebody else, then you should be unstoppable. You could be unleashed in communication and in relationship building and in value and contribution. And so, long story short is that I applied this strategy that I developed on the heels of reading that book to my mortgage business, and my mortgage business more than doubled within a year. And it was great for obvious reasons financially. But the truth of the matter is, I was drowning. I was working 24/7. I was pregnant with my second child. And I was thinking to myself, is this really it? Like, the money's great and I'm miserable and I'm exhausted and I'm tethered to my phone from the moment my eyeballs open till I fall asleep at night. And then what am I aspiring to? Because the people that were ahead of me in the game in my company, they all admitted that they would work until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, even after they put their kids to bed. And so I came home, I talked to my husband. I'm like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, because if this is what success, external success, right? If this is what success looks like and feels like, it maybe isn't what I'm cut out for. So I tried shrinking my vision after that. I tried to do less. And the following year, my business declined. I found myself in credit card debt again. And I was just like, oh my God, enough is enough. I don't want to be broke and I don't want to be burned out. There's got to be a better
Hmm.
way. And so that's when I started to scale my business. And once I started hiring help and building a small team, we more than doubled again and again. And so it led me to wanting to teach other people how to create predictable growth in your business without feeling salesy, how to be your amazing, authentic self and achieve extraordinary growth in your business, and how to achieve fulfillment in lieu of this external financial success at the expense of my happiness, my well-being, my present moments with people I care about. And it just led to this journey of publishing the book, starting the podcast, speaking, training, and where I am today now is just training people full time on how to design a business that actually fuels the life vision that you had, instead of having your business be like the whale in the bathtub with life squished in around the edges, you know?
Yeah, man, I love that so much. And thank you for just elaborating on, how you got to where you are. And, one thing that I heard you say, you saw people initially in the mortgage industry like working 10, 11 hours, working through the days, completely just their life being consumed by this business. And that's something that I saw, initially as I got into the financial advising industry as well too. And I think that's natural. Like when we first start something, like we have to put in so much work, so much time and attention to make this thing work. But I remembered as I started to see a lot of those people that, initially I admired, I was like, man, this is really cool. They're really successful, but do I really want my life to be surrounded around this thing, not having the time for the relationships in my life? Not having the time to, do the things that I like doing, or even just focusing on your health, simple things like that. So we're gonna get into lifestyle design, but first I'd love to start here. I like to talk about like, sales and business because when we had talked, and you mentioned it as well too, that you were terrified of being looked at as salesy. You had to overcome this obstacle, and I feel like a lot of people usually do because a lot of times people have this aversion to sales, just the nature of it, and whether or not you overcome that has a huge impact on like whether or not you succeed in business because, business is sales. We have to sell things in order to be in business. So, where do you feel this initial aversion to sales came from for you?
I don't know. Honestly, I just remember going into the office wearing the outfit all dressed up in the female suit, sitting at the big mahogany desk, and then being taught strategies that felt to me very self-serving. I just felt like,
Mm-hmm.
don't get me wrong, I had a significant need, right, to pay my bills, to have money in the bank. I needed money. And the problem that I've found in my own experience and with those I coach is that when we activate from a negative side of the scale. So imagine your emotions as a human being, right? They vacillate from positive to negative based on any number of factors in your life. If you experience a tragic loss of a loved one, you're going to experience sadness and anger and grief and resentment and all kinds of things, right? And when you're having the best day ever and you're feeling inspired and engaged and present, you're laughing or you're even in tears, like when you're fully present, when you're fully engaged, you can find yourself on the positive side of the scale. And I think that we as human beings need to accept our humanness and not try to be perfect all the time, right? Let's evaluate where we are in this moment. Am I exhausted? Am I energized? Am I
Mm-hmm.
confident or am I insecure and self-doubt? Am I excited or am I worried, right? Where am I on the scale? And what I found is that for those first couple years, the very first thing I thought of in the day was the problem I got to solve. So where does that put me on the emotional scale? Well, puts me on that imposter syndrome, feeling inferior,
Yeah, the
feeling like a
scarcity.
loser, and yeah, and like I'm focused on the problem I'm trying to solve. And then they give you the action plan. And there's no shortage of playbook of what to do. So why does it always feel like a grind then? Because ultimately, we think that once we do this thing so that we can get what we need to fill our void, we're going to have permission to feel better. So when we're struggling financially and someone gives you the action plan and you're desperate and you're just like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to put on my big girl pants and make it happen, right? And you muscle through the activity and maybe you get some deals and now all of a sudden you're making money and you're feeling grateful for that. But soon after that, you start to feel the misalignment. Like all of a sudden I'm putting in longer hours and longer hours. And so I start to tell myself, I'm exhausted. I'm burning out. And when I slow down, when it slows down, then I'm going to give myself permission to feel what? Present,
Mm-hmm.
satisfied,
Mm-hmm.
energized, happy. And so I try to reverse engineer it nowadays. When I look back to those early years of just being terrified to be seen as salesy, it was all about what do people think of me? And am I good enough? And I'm worried I'm not going to make it. And I'm stressed about my financial situation. Maybe I feel regret because of this debt. So I'm way down in the low side of the scale. And so every bit of activity that comes from this place of digging for motivation, it feels like an uphill battle. When I do
Absolutely.
the work to slow my roll, do a morning routine, take the time to get out of my head into my heart, meditate, journal, read something inspiring, listen to a podcast like yours, Kofi. All of a sudden, I notice myself in reflection of all the good things in my life. I feel myself calm, present, satisfied, excited, hopeful, right? I've moved myself along that scale and I can do it in as little as 10 or 15 minutes if I'm willing to take the time to first evaluate, have the self-awareness, recognize that it's going to be an uphill battle if I try to activate from this place of insecurity, do the work to get to the other side of the emotional scale. And all of a sudden, I get impulses, ideas, creativity. It's born out of the stillness, not the busyness. And when I act on those impulses, it creates opportunities, new relationships, doors open. This is the difference between paddling upstream versus getting on the raft and going with the flow a little bit. And it's a
Yeah.
lot more fun to do the latter, right? It's a lot more fun. It's still kind of scary because you're on the raft and it's going fast. You don't know where it's going, but it's fun, right? And I think that's what I want people to consider is that we don't have to postpone the right to earn the ability to feel the emotions that we associate with abundance. Like we can access them now. And when we do, it can create the opportunity for quantum leaps in the success in our business that we're seeking.
Yeah. No, I love that so much. And especially that framework as well, too, because that framework that you were pouring into yourself initially throughout the day, allows you to then take your focus on the other person that you're working with and really coming from a place of service because I feel like, oftentimes we will view sales and business as, this thing that we want to avoid because we are focusing on ourselves. And that's where a lot of the imposter syndrome comes from too. The anxiety or like the feeling that we're not good enough. But when we're able to, especially start our days doing the things that we know that we need to do to feel good, get to our own baseline, then when we're in this position where we're now serving or talking to others, we really don't feel we need you know need these things. We don't need to make this sale. We can really like say, okay, how can I then help this person, because I've already helped myself. I'm already feeling good. I'm already feeling how I need to feel. How can I now I can have this perspective where I can focus on this other person. And I know for me, as I started to like, do things that were filling up my cup, I started to become more of a problem solver. And I looked at sales as like, hey, I'm just going out there and now I'm able to serve others and now I'm able to solve problems with my expertise. And I think by taking that, or I know by taking that perspective, it really changes the relationship you have, to, the business that you're in so many different ways. So, you had to overcome a lot, as you're getting started. You said that, you're in this space where you're in a $30,000 plus of credit card debt. And a lot of times, entrepreneurship is going to be a roller coaster for everyone. I don't think that it's ever all the way up. It's never always all the way going to be down, but you got to be able to continue and persevere through a lot of different, unfortunately, sometimes negative experiences. So, what are things that you help your clients out with, or things that you may try to help them change their perspective around when times are getting hard to help them get through, obstacles that they may be facing?
Yeah. So one of the quotes I heard earlier this year that stuck with me was a Steve Jobs quote. And he said, you can't connect all the dots looking forward.
Mm,
So you got to connect the dots looking back. And I also saw Mel Robbins post one time on Instagram, something about don't don't wait for confidence to take action, and the confidence builds, right? And so the work I do for myself when I find myself in times of trouble or overwhelm or fear or uncertainty, which by the way, we all still experience. Like there's nobody that we look at and we admire that's achieved something that we desire for ourselves that doesn't still have uncertainty. And if we're not on the brink of something great, you know, we're gonna have uncertainty anytime we're on the brink of something great, right? So it's
absolutely.
almost like a cool thing to become a witness to your fear because it's usually an indicator that you're on the brink, you're on the leading edge of something great, and you've never been there before, right? We're here, I think, innately wired to expand as human beings. And we know this because every time you achieve any goal you have for yourself, like how much of your now reality, even just the decorations in your office or the place that you live or the relationships in your life or the physical feats that you maybe have accomplished in your life, maybe someone's run a marathon or they've climbed a mountain or whatever, like you have these goals you set out to achieve. Once you've achieved them, you maybe revel in it for a moment
Mhm.
or maybe an hour or a day or whatever. And then how long is it before you're thinking about what's next?
Oh,
We're
it's like the
always,
next day. It's like,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're always on the brink, right? Which means that we are always going to have fear and uncertainty because we're always on the leading edge of a place we've never been before as human beings that are growth minded and designed to expand, really. And so when we're there, when we're in this place of like, well, crap, here I am again. My credit card debt has built up again. How did I get here? We can stay there and stuck and mad about the current circumstance, which is the byproduct of the past. It's already old news anyway. Or we can look back and see how many times we've gotten through hard times before. How many times have I felt stuck and I thought it was permanent and I was paralyzed with anxiety? And then I got through it. And here I am on the other side to tell a story about it, right? We've all done it. We've all overcome or gone through some hard times.
Mhm.
So, with that, we can be a witness and say, all right, well, I can also see that in some area of my life, in my now reality that was once a pipe dream, or in achievements that I've had in my life that I didn't know would be possible if I went back to my 20-year-old self, then I have enough evidence there to calm my nervous system and acknowledge that I have no clue what I'm capable of. We will never fully be able to grasp the limitless potential that we have within us because we're always on the leading edge of a place we've never been. So it's going to be hard to believe in something you've never seen before. So you've got to be
Mhm.
willing to take the time to look back. And so a lot of times I'll just journal, like I'll journal the names of people that I've met in the last 12 months that had a positive impact on my life. And you're one of them, Kofi. So you and I connected, and I could go back and figure out how we connected. It doesn't really matter how we connected. I know one thing for sure. 6 months ago, I didn't know you, and I didn't conjure you up in my
Mhm.
fear-based analytical brain and then go hunt you down and make this relationship come to be so that I could achieve all my goals. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
that's the dots connecting, right? We can look back and see how dots connected and how stars aligned and how paths crossed and how doors opened and miracles happened and relationships helped us. And you just, it's so unscripted. Like so much of it is so unscripted. So when we do this kind of work, we can start to chill out and be like, hell yeah, that was awesome. And that was awesome. And this was awesome. And this person's cool. And all this good stuff has happened in my life. So now I'm anchoring my attention on the unfolding of good things that were unscripted by me. And so now, as I stand on the leading edge of whatever I'm trying to create for myself in the future, instead of being scared of the unknown, I can be kind of curious about it and excited, like, ooh, this is that that's possible. What else is possible, you know? And
Yeah.
it's kind of, then we can just lighten up a little bit, like really lighten up. And even myself, if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling down, or maybe I'm upset about something, or something tragic has happened, or I've had a hard conversation with somebody, whatever, right? Something that takes the wind out of your sails, life happening, right? I really resist the urge to try to put a band-aid on that with activity.
Mm.
I will spend more time, as much time as is necessary, to get myself along that emotional scale to a place of, yeah, this is fun. Like, this is going to be a good day. I'm curious what's in store. I have no idea, but I bet something awesome is going to happen. And it's like, now I don't need to have it all figured out, and I don't need to fix it all today. I'm not going to figure it all out today. And I can kind of relax and recognize that, like, the dots will connect with each step that I take. So just look for the impulse to act, follow the inspired action, resist digging deep for the motivation, instead go the inspiration route, and then just be kind of curious to see what pops up in your life, and you'll be surprised by how many. It is limitless. I believe that to be true. There's limitless opportunities all around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I appreciate you saying all of that so much because, it's so true. We do fear the unknown. And when we are not used to something or we haven't experienced something, naturally there's going to be a lot of guessing that our brain wants to do about, what can happen. And we are kind of naturally catastrophizers as humans. We,
Yes.
we tend to usually move towards what is the worst, thing that's going to happen. But I read this quote. I think this is a quote by Buddha, but it's fear does not stop us from dying. Fear stops us from living. And
Mm.
as I started to embrace and move towards things that I was unsure of or I didn't know, that's where I found, as you said, some of the greatest surprises. Some of the most fulfillment in my life has happened from going down that path that I have not treaded before in our past. And yeah, if you don't have any fear, naturally you're going to be in an environment where you know what's going to happen. And how boring is that? No one wants to live a life that's going to be the same type of day every single time they get up essentially. So I think it's so important to, be present in that fear, understanding, okay, where is this coming? But, starting to kind of, pull it apart and see, okay, I may be anxious about this. Or I may not, know what's going on, but how can I embrace this and just be present? And, ultimately take what I can, the lessons I can learn from this experience and also enjoy it more because life is, as I've started to become more present, I've started to enjoy life on so many different levels. Just not being so scared about, okay, what's going to happen next week, next quarter, next year. And it's surprising, but, being someone that is more of an action taker, things tend to figure itself out, even in the worst case scenario. Things end up usually coming to a really good place. So why give ourselves so much more stress than we need to? you know, in
Yeah,
this
I mean, it's easier said than done. And that's the thing,
yeah,
is that this is the work, right? So, like,
yeah,
as human beings, especially in the world we live in, where we're constantly being interrupted and distracted by inbound alerts and texts and social media and email and nonstop, right? It's really hard to carve out that pause to
mhm,
find access to that clarity and to do this work, like I say, from the inside out. But also necessary. And one quote I heard a long time ago that I loved was, the sooner you step outside your comfort zone, the sooner you realize you weren't all that comfortable. And I remember thinking about the times in my journey where I was terrified and paralyzed in insecurity, limiting beliefs, fear of being seen as salesy, all these things, or paralyzed in overwhelm and burnout and trying to convince myself that I'm okay when I'm definitely not, because I'm grateful to be making good money, right? These are two different pain points and they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. And some people who might be struggling financially think, oh, that sounds like a great problem to have. It's like, well, not necessarily, because when you're surviving your success like that, you even have a harder time carving out a pause to reflect and evaluate if this is even where you want to be. I remember thinking like I had more to ship to port and I was on the wrong island. You know what I mean? Like I had my head down, grinding, hustling to get to this imaginary destination, only to wake up and be like, this is not fulfilling. I'm not pleased, right? So all that to say is that if I look back to the times where I was in fear of, doing sales activity, for example, and so you're hanging on to the bank of the river, like this is safe. I'm safe here on the bank of the river. I don't want to let go because downstream, I don't know what's down there. It could be scary. And it's like, yeah, but are you comfortable here? As your arms get tired and your hands get calloused, like you can stay here because downstream is scary, or you can loosen up, lighten up, release the
Hmm.
grip, get in the ride, go for some fun. You might get banged and bruised a little bit, but oh well, you're going to be having more fun, right? Because you're not going to be letting fear keep you paralyzed. And when you do this, when you take these small steps that later maybe become big steps, or maybe you've taken big risks, and then you look back at the great adventure and realize that your biggest risk turned out to be your smartest decision most of the time, and that you were not more comfortable playing small. You were not more comfortable on the bank of the river. Okay. And that's hard, but that's where hindsight comes into play. But it's also where taking the time to slow down, to evaluate, am I on the right ship? Am I going the right direction? Is this
Hmm.
even what I want? Or am I just in should and have to mode? And then how do I change to want to and choose to mode, and then make decisions for the future that feel like a hell yes, that I want to run towards it, that I'm
Yes.
excited about my future. And I don't have any clue what's in store, but it's going to be fun. I know that.
I love it. I love it. So I want to make a shift here and really bring some value to a lot of the business owners that we have that listen to this show. So when we briefly talked last week, you talked about this great idea that you had, bringing more value to the clients that you had that don't necessarily need your services like at the moment, because kind of in mortgage it's can be a little transactional, and then you may not talk to someone for a few months, a few years, but you really described how you're able to bring more value to your clients and not letting your job title define who we are or what we do. And I think this is such an important concept to embrace, especially as a small business owner breaking into an established market. So I'd love for you to share how you kind of did that in your practice, and the impact that it had.
Yeah. And this strategy works 100% of the time. And it's a strategy that I developed in 2011, but then utilized many times when different life events resulted in a decline in my business. And so it is a strategy that will create predictable growth without feeling salesy, and it's not all consuming either. So the gist of it is that when I read The Go Giver and I understood the concept of be of value above and beyond what you get paid to do, or be of value, above and beyond anything really, just like make it your mission to be of value and you cannot fail. And I reflected on the previous 4 years I had been self-employed, where all of my marketing was push marketing. It was all about me. It was all about, okay, home improvement tips, turn back the clock, like whatever. I mean, who knows if the person on the receiving end of that marketing found any value in their own personal life, or was that more about me making myself visible as a mortgage professional? So all I did was I thought about the fact that my clients don't need my services typically for another 3 to 5 years.
Mhm.
So what does it actually mean to be of value to you, Kofi, when you closed on your house last month and you're not going to need to buy or refinance or sell or whatever for another couple years? Well, there's this saying that it's when you step back from the single brushstroke that you can see the entire painting. And when I heard that, I remember thinking, okay, so the transaction, the paycheck for me, for example, that's just one brushstroke of my client's painting in their life, right? So if their life is depicted as a painting, this closing is just one brushstroke. So what else is going on in their life? Well, and how can I be a resource to them? Well, number one, I need to know what's going on with them, which means I actually have to stay in touch. And that's like the hardest part, right? But this is where curiosity squashes insecurity. So I start calling all my friends and my clients and I'm saying, hey, I'm working on my business plan. And one of my goals is that I want to be a resource to you, even when you don't need a mortgage. So there's my soft plug and like hope and expectation that when they do, I'm their person, right? And I say, with that being said, I'm building a referral directory, a tribe of trusted local service providers that can be of value to you in any arena, whether it's health and wellness, financial services, home contractors, you name it. And Kofi, I'm wondering, since you're in finance, do you happen to know any good CPAs or estate attorneys or financial advisors or life insurance agents, whatever. So I'm going to lean on you, my friend, to refer me to any five-star professionals that you know, like, and trust that I can support by including them in my referral directory. Okay. So you're my friend or you're my past client. We just have this conversation. The impetus of the call is like, hey, dude, I'm doing this thing. And do you know anybody that I should connect with and I can support them by introducing them to the rest of my clients? And you say, let me connect you with so and so and so and so. Or you might say, you know what? No, I actually need a good CPA. And now I have another action item, which is that when I find that five-star CPA, I'm going to make sure that they meet you. So I'm making a list of my action items, right? For sure, I'm going to be meeting a couple people that you're going to introduce me to. And for sure, I'm going to be referring you to a couple people that I'm going to either meet or already know. So now that one interaction with my past client has turned into 3 or 4 more action items for me to build new relationships and to deepen existing ones. And then I make sure that before we get off the phone, I still have to find out what the action item is for you. I still have to find out what's going on in your life so I can prove, like, demonstrate myself as a resource. Then I'm not just blowing smoke. So then I say, what else has been going on with you? How's the family, or what's new? How's work been? And what you guys do anything fun for Labor Day weekend? Or you guys got any travel plans this winter, or just anything? And there's these acronyms that your listeners may have heard before, but they mean the same thing. There's FORD and FROG. So FORD is family, occupation, recreation, dreams. So I might be asking you about your aspirations, your family, your occupation, what you do for fun, what are you doing this weekend, what did you do last weekend, whatever. And frog is the same thing, family, recreation, occupation, goals. So same concept, just take one of those and make sure that every conversation begets a value add as a follow-up. So that way I'm not just calling you because my sales trainer said I need to keep in touch with my past clients to stay top of mind, which is a me thing. I'm calling you to communicate my intention to be of value, demonstrate my intention to be of value, and see how everything's going with you. So on the heels of our conversation, I'm either going to send a handwritten note saying, it was so great to hear your voice. I'm so excited about that, or I'm so sorry about that, or here's a resource for this, or let me connect you to so-and-so for that, or here's a little gift in the mail for, the baby on the way, whatever, right? So one by one, I'm having these conversations with my friends and my clients, and I'm only having these conversations with people I genuinely care about. I'm not shooting all over myself. Like I don't make calls because I think I should. Okay. I'm making these calls because I want to, because I care about you. So first things first, clean up your database. And instead of organizing it based on how many dollars it might put into your bank account, organize it based on authenticity. And I mean that, like, sincerity. Who in your database brings a smile to your face? And can you come from a place of love and curiosity to be a resource to them, even when they don't need your services? And can you create a snowball then of engagement and interaction? And so over time, I would leverage my friends to connect me with the service providers. And like I said, it's not just financial services, it's the OBGYN and the pediatrician for the family that relocated here. They need referrals for a dentist. They need referrals for doctors. They just moved here from the East Coast, right? So massage therapist, hairdresser, acupuncture. So I created a list of all the different businesses that I wanted to meet and connect with and build my old school yellow pages or Rolodex with. And then I got creative because I want to be of value to them too. This is not just about having a vendor list. That sounds so superficial. Like, a vendor list sounds like these people are disposable, and if they mess up one time, they're off your list. This is about building relationships. So the people in my tribe became my friends, they became my clients, and they became my referral partners. And I was a huge referral source for them as well. And I taught them this strategy so that everyone in all of these different trades, like the newborn wedding and family photographer, has the same target market as me. She's working with newborn families, newborns, people getting married. Typically, they're also going to want to buy a house. So I could promote her as a photographer to my clients, and she could promote that she has resources when they need to buy a house to her clients. So we're all promoting ourselves as people that want to be a resource above and beyond just whatever we get paid to do. And so that's just saying like, hey, I want to be a resource to you when you need anything. If you need anything, not just what I do for a living, call me because I've got somebody for you. And if I don't have somebody in my tribe already, I have a big enough network to find somebody you can trust. So, and then by proving it, you get them thinking about you. Now, my friends and clients are texting me all the time. Do you know a good such and such? Do you know a good
Yeah.
such and such? And eventually it's like they're at a work meeting and somebody at their office says something about buying a house. And on top of mind is a person who's a resource, not as a great salesperson. So you're
Mhm.
really creating a brand that goes beyond your job title. It's just about being of value.
Absolutely, man. I love that. Again, on so many different levels because what I found when I started to have create those trusted partners within my practice. One just the I'm really big on how I feel. When I'm doing business, when I'm interacting with people, and if you're always like just reaching out to people just because you want to be able to sell them something or do business with them, it really starts to create this feeling where man, like it's kind of you have to overcome like more inertia to make these calls. But when you develop these relationships where you're like calling someone because they needed to meet a photographer for their wedding, and you're able to make that connection with them, with someone that you trust and that's going to do a great job, it definitely creates another feeling of like, wow, I'm truly again serving people and I'm focusing on their needs and helping them out. And then two, for the people, the relationships you have for your clients and those other business owners that you're in partnership with, it creates an immense amount of value for you because you're now seen as this connector, this person that can, not just solve them a problem that is in your space, you can solve many different problems in their lives. By connecting
Yep.
them to the right people. And I think that is, I don't think we put as much value on the relationships we have in business. And I think, as an advisor, like, I was always told like this is a relationship, based business. But I really started to see how much more important relationships are than just the finances. Because if you have the right relationships, again, that's going to be people that, as you said, you may have people in horizontal industries that are very similar, so you can create this almost boutique service model where you're like, hey, like I can help you achieve all these different things. And the amount of stress that decreases again for the people that you're working with, knowing that wow, I'm not going to have to go out and find the right person and take all this time and make all these mistakes. Like I know that Erin is going to be the person that if I need this thing, I can reach out to her. It really in many different ways, I feel like it just helps build the legacy and the reputation that you have, around
Yep.
your clients. It really is such a powerful thing. So I think that, one obstacle for a lot of times for people to create these partnerships and to, integrate other businesses into the things they're doing is just developing trust, and we do live in this world where I feel trust is at like an all-time low. I see it all the time. Even like I was over at a chiropractor appointment, and, before we went to this chiropractor, session, they actually gave this little presentation about like just health and like how important, food is when it comes to health, and how like a lot of different like medications are not actually solving the problems, and how you have to take this much more proactive approach when it comes to a lot of things that we face. And one of the guys, is this a sales pitch? He was just like, right in the middle of the conversation, I was like, this is just like he's just giving us some education. But it's really rampant how low trust is nowadays. So you know and it oftentimes again it impacts people from developing relationships. So how important do you feel trust is in business when and partnerships, and how do you discern who to trust and who not to trust in business?
So one of the best pieces of advice I got was from a coach in 2015. And he said, it's the 25% rule. 25% of people will love you no matter what. 25% never will, no matter what. And then the 50% in between are either fair weather friends or they just haven't met you yet.
Yeah.
And so I took that to heart and I looked at my database, and I mean, there is an aspect here of running a business where you need to organize your relationships, not just hope for the best. And so, I mean, it was old school. I just had an Excel spreadsheet and had everybody I knew on that Excel spreadsheet. And then I really evaluated, is this person my 25% that loves me no matter what? And I can usually know pretty honestly who they are in my life,
Hmm.
and you even just the people that like everything you post on social media, like there's a clear indicator they love you no matter what. They're cheering you on, they're rooting for you. And the truth is that you are someone else's 25%, right? You have people in your life, you have relationships that you feel this organic, energizing connection to, that when you are with them, it's high vibe. You leave feeling better than you came. Like, and then you have people that are energy drains, it's not because they're a bad person, but you know that when you leave those interactions, spending a lot of time with those people, you're second guessing yourself. You feel a little depleted, maybe a little bit drained. And so I pay very, very close attention to my energy and to protecting my energy. And that was a really tough thing to figure out because I had a lot of heavy should, right? I had a lot of sales trainers telling me, here's the playbook, follow the plan, whether you like it or not, suck it up, right? Muscle through the activity. And there were some relationships in that list that were not my 25%. And I continued to market to them and I continued to have business experiences that really were not positive. Like they suck the life out of you. And when that happens with one like bad apple that you're trying to do business with or connect with or whatever, that is going to take from your ability to show up as your full self to those right fit relationships in your life and business. And so
Hmm.
when it comes to trust, I think trust is inherently there with your 25%. And so I think it's more about cutting the fat and
Mm.
acknowledging the fact that 75% of the population is not your people. And that's okay. And if we can more quickly move on from recognizing that when someone doesn't choose to work with me, they're not my 25%, I don't even have to waste a second of emotional energy on that. Like maybe I'm disappointed for a minute because I really wanted that to turn into a paycheck. But again, that's a me thing. That's me back in the problem solving zone. That's me back in the negative space. And that's me on the lower end of the emotional scale. I'm not getting where I'm trying to go from there. So I need to bless and release. And I need to recognize that if somebody doesn't trust me, it's because they're not my 25%. But if I go all in with my 25%, if I really clean it up, and I like to use the analogy of like uprooting everything in the garden, like in the springtime, if you live in a climate where you have winters, in the spring, your garden is always a disaster. There's weeds, there's things that come up that are pretty every year. There's things that you plant every year that you're choosing to put in there. And there's some things that have just never even been evaluated, just kind of settled for the fact that when you bought the house or you rented the place, they were there. And so you, as the designer of your life and your business, need to constantly check in on that garden and say, are there weeds in here? And just because I used to like having the tulips in my garden doesn't mean I like it anymore. And that's okay. My preferences have changed. I have evolved. I don't have to stick with relationships that no longer serve me. I can have seasons. Okay. So with that, sometimes you have to uproot the entire garden all the way down to the soil, and then you intentionally plant those relationships that feel like a yes for you. And then you get really curious about how to be of value to people you love. And that's it. You build a business of you and around people that love you no matter what, and you love them back. And together you create a ripple effect, and that will lead you to new relationships that match you energetically. And that's where life and business integrate and become really, really fun.
Wow. I feel that again. So many different levels. I think it's so important to, be aware that we are always exchanging energy with every single person that we, interact with. And I think it was maybe 3, 4 years ago. I heard this concept. It's like, you'll either fall to someone's level or they'll rise to your level, essentially. And that, can be in the ways of, hard work. It can be, your level of honesty, integrity, all those different things in life. And as I started to or be more intentional about the relationships that I had in my life, I realized a lot of the different, maybe problems or things that I had with, people, a lot of them started to disappear. When you fill your space up with people that, do honor you as much as you honor them, that respect you as much as you respect them, that are willing to, work just as hard. It's really interesting how a lot of those different fears around like, oh my, like, should I trust this person? Is this person going to do this? A lot of those things kind of dissipate and they disappear when you really start to be intentional. But if you're just letting anyone into your space, it's really difficult to try to think about, okay, how, if I just let anyone into my space, like I'm gonna have, trust issues. I'm gonna have all these different things that come up that impede me from then being my best self for the people that I really need to, show up for. So I love that you said that. So you also talk about the process of your roadmap to freedom and how you integrate this with helping people get into lifestyle design and how they can like start to really craft their business around their life instead of letting their business run their life essentially. So I'd love for you to like elaborate on this idea that you have and some of the ways in which you've been able to craft your life around, the business that you're doing and how you also help a lot of your other, entrepreneurs do that as well too.
Well, I'll never forget. It was probably around that 2012 mark. I'm pretty sure I was pregnant with my second child. I went back to the East Coast where I'm from to see some old friends, and my best friend from kindergarten, her husband is also in the mortgage business, and he
Mhm.
was doing a ton of business, much more than I was, and I was drowning, as I mentioned. But it was interesting because he would surf every day, and he would go into the office at 10 o'clock in the morning after he had already surfed since like 6:30 in the morning. Okay. And then he would go to Hawaii every year for it was first, it was like 2 weeks, then it was a month. Then eventually they rented a condo for like 3 months when their kids were in preschool and put them in school over there 4 months. And I remember watching him live life big, like do all the fun things and all the adventures. And I noticed myself in I can't mentality. Like, I wish I could do that, but I can't because. And now I know to catch myself in that language because it was the first time I realized how much I was limiting myself with the narrative in my brain of like, I'm so busy at work. I can't take that vacation. I can't take a vacation and not work. Like that was a big one. I don't think I took my first full vacation unplugged for many, many, many years that I was in the business. And I had a narrative that I was lucky that I could travel whenever I want because I can work from anywhere. And so I created a story to justify this this bit of misalignment of like I don't give myself permission to rest. And I remember thinking to myself, I think I even asked him like, how do you do it? And he's like, well, what's the point of being self-employed if you're not having fun? And I was like, good point. So with that, I think to myself, yeah, we didn't take the easy route. Entrepreneurship isn't the easy route. If we want the easy button, we could just go get a job working for someone else who will tell us when to be, where we need to be, and what to do. And in exchange, they'll give us a paycheck, right? So if we're not taking the easy route, and in theory, we want freedom and flexibility, whose job is it to claim that for you? Whose job
Hours.
is it to give you permission to take
Hmm.
a vacation? And also, when we went 100% commission, did we turn to our best friend or our mom and dad or our loved ones and just say, like, you know what I'm really hoping for? I just really hope that I can make a lot of money, and in exchange for doing that, I really want to work from the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep. I want to never stop looking at my phone. I want to never take a vacation. I hope I get to work 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the rest of my life because the money's going to be great. That's what freedom and flexibility looks like. No, we wanted freedom and flexibility, which is why my business is called Pursuing Freedom. But in hindsight, I was laughing with somebody the other day saying I probably should have called it claiming freedom because we're all free to choose. And one of the affirmations I have is that I have complete freedom over my time. I have all the time I need to accomplish what matters most. But we get so caught up as passengers on the speeding train of achievement and success that we rarely pick our head up to ask ourselves, like I said before, are we even going the right direction? Are we headed to the right station? So over the years, I started to experiment with this, with long vacations, or we did a 6-month RV road trip and homeschooled our kids during COVID. And I remember thinking, this is going to put me out of business doing this big adventure. And in the end, I had a 50% increase in business that year. And I proved myself wrong, right? The fear being like you said, I love that fear does not stop us from dying, it stops us from living. I that was and I can't, right? Like I can't do this road trip, but people will think that I just pieced out of the business and nobody's gonna refer me because they're gonna think I'm on this trip. And same thing when we moved to the mountains. We were living in the city in Denver and we bought a little condo in the mountains, and We were here every weekend, and the oldest was in kindergarten. And I remember my husband and I going out to dinner talking about how we'd love to live there full time someday, maybe when the kids grow up. And I said, I can't now because, and then fill in the blanks. And whatever follows because, whatever follows the justification of why you can't is nothing more than fear. And it's totally acceptable to get intimate with that. Like take a piece of paper and write it down. I wish I could fill in the blanks, but fill in the blanks. Whatever follows but is your fear. Or I can't do that because, and then there goes your fear. Once you understand what fear is doing to you, you can start to challenge it. You can start to rewrite the narrative and you can start to say, what's the worst case scenario? What if it works? So we did. We moved up here to the ski town in the summer of 16, even though I'd been running my business for 10 years, an hour and a half away. And again, I thought, okay, I better pretend like I'm still living in Denver. I don't want people to think I like left for the mountains. And in the end, it ended up doubling our business again because we opened another office in a different market and it was a wonderful thing. So I've been experimenting with this game of life for a little while now where it's like I almost make it, yeah, like a game of it. If I think to myself, that would be amazing. And then I hear my language of but or I can't, I'm gonna be willing to challenge it and just say, okay, let's go through all the worst case scenarios. Usually the worst case scenario is you end up where you are right now, which is clinging onto the bank of the river because that's what feels comfortable, right? So just like lighten up, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You end up back where you are right now, which is probably just fine, but it's not awesome or you wouldn't be feeling called to that next big leap.
So true, man. And what I realized is that entrepreneurs, typically why you get into this space, as you said, is because we want to pursue freedom. And really, money is just an equator to that freedom. We really see money as, okay, that gives me access, that gives me the ability to, now live certain experiences. But when we, get into the minutia and, we're now 6 months, a couple years down the road in our entrepreneurial path, we then focus so much on the things we need to do and not who we, strive to become. And I feel as though when we actually focused or spend time focusing on that person we want to become, it's weird, but we end up having a lot of the things that we do want in life. But then we're so focused on doing and just what thing I need to do today, what I need to do this hour, what I need to do this week. You don't even have the space to even enjoy any of the things that achieve for yourself at the end of the day. And it's because of, hustle culture, we live in the consumer culture, all these different things. But really get into a place when you can be, more intentional with your time and think about, okay, how can I fill my life with the things that I ideally do enjoy, the things that actually, fill my cup up. It also makes you such a better entrepreneur, again, because again, you can act from this space of abundance and you can really perform in this place where, okay, when think when we were talking, the other week, I talked about, okay, how uh, in 2022, my goal in 2023 was how can I work half the amount of time and make the same amount of money? And when I did that, I found that I actually doubled, my practice because I was going out. I made connections with clients rock climbing. I made connections with clients, doing yoga. By taking time in my day to like meditate, I was able to have a clearer mind and you know again focus more on the people that I was talking to. But you know this 10 to 12 hour workday, again, it's just it feels nice. It feels like being busy is okay, we're getting a lot done, but it's just really a distraction. And frankly, any day that I actually worked 12 hours, I wasn't actually working 12 hours. I'd say like I really productively probably worked maybe at most 4 to 6. And then the other time again was just maybe spent, I don't know, checking my email, going on social media, all these different things. But when you condense like your time down, you actually find that you're also more productive as well too. So I think again, because of that fear, we oftentimes want to stay in this place where we're comfortable. We want to stay in this place where we know what we've been used to essentially. But by shifting again, you're able to enjoy so much more life. And at the end of the day, when we're all in our 90s, you're not going to remember all the times you were working. You're not going to remember, those long days. You're going to remember the experiences you had and how much of your life you were actually able to live, at the end of the day. So I appreciate that so much. So as we're, wrapping up here, I'd love for you to, there's a couple final questions that I have for you, Aaron. So, if you were talking to your younger self, as you were starting out in the entrepreneurial space, what is some pieces of advice or what would you have told your younger self, in that moment, if you could kind of take a step back from where you are today?
I would say chill out. You've got this and say yes to life. And that's one of my mottos is say yes to life. So rather than thinking I need to script it all and have it all figured out, I try to be more curious than scripted. And I find that the next right step always appears if you're listening, if you're curious, if you're present. And the other thing I like is the saying, I behave like the person I want to become.
Mm,
How do healthy and abundant people behave? And there's an aspect to that of tapping into the feelings of freedom and abundance now, and the fact that how I feel affects how I show up, and how I show up affects everything. And if I can simply come from a place of curiosity, chase the contribution, the money will follow.
mm. I love it. I love it. And let's say that you are, now talking to a lot of those busy entrepreneurs that feel like they have, no time and space in their lives, to do any of this stuff. What are three pieces of advice that you'd give them on, money and business?
Well, number one, busyness does not equal business. Okay. Busyness is laziness disguised as productivity because you're too busy to discern what really matters. And even just the 25% rule, like evaluating the energy exchange with everything you say yes to. Every appointment, every meeting, every box that you check, every box that doesn't get checked, really checking in on what's it doing? Is that energizing or is it draining? And if it's draining, but it needs to get done, then I'm going to create a system for it, whether it's automation or delegation or elimination. There's got to be a system because it takes work to consistently slow down to speed up. Like a slingshot, you've got to pull it back in order to have it launch far. And when we're busy, busy, busy and not willing to slow down in order to speed up, we're just going to stay running on that hamster wheel, like just on autopilot. And so carving out the pause is really powerful, having a strong morning routine without anybody getting access to me so that I don't allow my energy and my emotions and my attention to be hijacked by the agendas of the external world until I've set myself straight, like putting on the oxygen mask. And the last thing I would say is that if you're thinking about needing help in your business to alleviate some of the energy draining things and or to improve consistency and execution where you're consistently inconsistent, what I can tell you is that if you can hire somebody to do something for you 100% consistently, that you've maybe been doing 20 to 30% consistently. And even if they only do it 80% as good as you think you do it, which isn't that good, by the way, if you're only 20 or 30% consistent. So if you can get someone to do it with consistency, even 80% as good as you think you do it, it's going to move the needle. And if it moves the needle, and let's say one more client could bring you whatever, $5,000 a month in income, for example. Well, if it's costing you $2,000 a month to have a part-time assistant to execute with 100% consistency, everything that's going to ensure that you're getting more clients, it's not costing you $2,000 a month. It's costing you $3,000 not to. And some people's ROI is significantly higher, where maybe outsourcing 20 hours a week, paying $2,000 a month is going to bring in another $10,000 a month in revenue. Well, that's $8,000 a month of lost revenue because you're trying to do it all yourself. So it's not costing you to invest in yourself. It's not costing you to invest in a mentor or an employee or anything of the sort. It's costing you not to, because we stay stuck where we are, limited by our personal capacity, limited by the thoughts in our brain that create the constructs that keep us where we are in the box. And ultimately, we've got to be willing to say yes and invest in
Hmm.
ourselves to have that quantum leap towards that life that sounds like a dream.
Absolutely. Wow. And I'd even love to add on that because, there's another aspect of when you hire and delegate, you achieve more peace in your life and more happiness. And you can't put a price on that. Even if it does, end up costing you, like, the ability to have more time to live in your life and do the things you're doing is, in my opinion, absolutely priceless. And, the more I've been able to live my life because those systems and delegation has just, again, maximized on my overall fulfillment. So last question for you, Aaron. How would you describe someone that is breaking the glass ceiling?
Oh, well, I love it. Like the glass ceiling to me just represents the box that I was just talking about, where if you think back to times in your life where you had no clue what you were capable of, you were in that box, you were
Mhm.
limited, right? And then you bust through it. And on the other side is all this expansion and unexpected, unbelievable, extraordinary miracles, wonderful people, all this good stuff happening. And therein lies the evidence that we are always going to be keeping ourselves stuck until we decide to do it differently. And that's all it is. The only difference between us and somebody else achieving at a level we want or living a life we desire for ourselves is their decision to do it. We don't see all the trial and error, all the mistakes, all the falling on their face and getting
Mhm.
up and keep going. And so I say, if you want to break the glass ceiling for yourself, get in the room with somebody who reminds you of your future. Spend time with people that energize you. Spend time with people that are going places you want to go. And you'll be so surprised by how much faster you can get where you're trying to go when you're hanging around the people that believe in you and you can borrow the belief you see in them. And all of a sudden, you're on your way.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show, Aaron. This has been such a great conversation. I felt like I could have gone a lot longer, but I know we both have, you know, things to get to in our days. And guys, don't hesitate to reach out to Aaron because I mean, I've only spent like a couple hours with you, but I can just tell from the energy that you have that you bring so much value to the people that you serve. And if you guys are in that space where you are working in your business and you feel like you're just making these small gains every couple months, every couple years, reach out to Erin because she truly has this amazing course and structure of how she can really get you to that next level and allow you to live your life in such a better way. So again, thank you for coming on to the show, Erin. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Kofi. I appreciate you. Thanks for everyone tuning in out there.
All right, we'll see you guys next time on Breaking the Glass Ceiling.